Hello and welcome to Bhasi's IAS. Let's take up the analysis of today's news, that is 14th November 2019. Our first article is regarding RTI Act or Right to Information Act. Office of Chief Justice of India comes under the RTI Act. Transparency, accountability go hand in hand. Supreme Court's bench. In this particular discussion, we'll try to understand why this is in news, what is RTI Act or Right to Information Act, what is the current scenario, is this right absolute or not, and what's the way forward. Let's understand why this is in news. This is in light because the Office of Chief Justice of India is a public authority. So it is declared as a public authority under the Right to Information or RTI Act. This was declared yesterday by a 5-judge constitutional bench which was led by Chief Justice of India. The main judgment of the constitutional bench, authored by Justice Sanjeev Khanna, said that Supreme Court is a public authority. So it is declared as a public authority and the Office of Chief Justice of India is a part and parcel of the institution. Hence, if the Supreme Court is a public authority, so is the Office of CJI. The judges at the same time observed that transparency and accountability should go hand in hand. Increased transparency under RTI was no threat to judicial independence. Justice Sanjeev Khanna is of the opinion that we should not be understood to mean that independence of the judiciary can be achieved only by denial of access to information. Judicial independence and accountability go hand in hand. This was told by Justice Sanjeev Khanna. At the same time, Justice N.V. Ramana have opined that judiciary needs to be protected from attempts to breach its independence. Such interferences requires calibration of appropriate amount of transparency in consonance with judicial independence. Now we'll have a quick reference towards RTI Act or Right to Information Act. While we analyze the historical background of this act, the right to information gained power when Universal Declaration of Human Rights in the year 1948 when it was adopted, providing everyone the right to seek, receive information and ideas through any media regardless of frontiers. At the same time, in the year 1966, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights states that everyone shall have the right to freedom of expression, freedom of seek and impart information and ideas of all kinds. In India, basically right to information law have evolved almost in the year of 1986. That is almost a kind of genesis of RTI law. This is through judgment of Supreme Court in Mr. Kulwal versus Jaipur Municipal Corporation. This case and verdict has come in the year 1986. So in which it directed that freedom of speech and expression provided under Article 19 of Constitution of India clearly implies right to information, as without information the freedom of speech and expression cannot be fully used by the citizens of India. Let's understand what are the objectives of this act. The first objective is empower the citizens. Second one, to promote transparency and accountability, to contain corruption and people's participation in democratic process. So we understand that the RTI as a law has evolved in India or initiated in India only in the year of 1986 after the Jaipur Corporation case. So there are certain reasons for adoption of an Information Act in the country. The factors responsible for adoption of Information Act are as follows, like corruption and scandals, international pressure and activism, modernization and information society. Now we are looking at the information in the Right to Information Act. So, Section 2 of the Act clearly defines what this information means. So, information means anything in the form of records, documents, memos, emails, opinions, advices, press releases, circulars, orders, logbooks, contracts, reports, papers, samples, models, data material held in any electronic form, and information relating to any private body which can be assessed by a public authority under any law for the time being in force. Basically, right to information means right to information accessible under this act which is held by or under the control of any public authority. And this right to information in the control of any public authority includes right to inspection of work, documents and records, taking notes, extracts or certified copies of documents or records, taking certified samples of material, and also obtaining information in the form of diskettes, floppies, tapes, video cassettes or any other electronic mode, or through printouts where such information is stored in a computer or any other device. Now we'll try to understand what is this public authority. Public authority means any authority or body or institution of self-government established or constituted under the Constitution, or any law which is made by Parliament or state legislature, or by notification issued or order made by the appropriate government. So it includes any body owned, controlled or substantially financed by government, or non-governmental organization substantially financed directly or indirectly by funds provided by the government. The Act also provides for appointment of information commissioners both at the central and the state level. Next, we'll look at the time period. That means in normal course, information to an applicant is to be supplied within 30 days. Okay, this is the time period in a normal course. This is from the receipt of application, from the date of receipt of application by the public authority. There is an exception. Okay, if information sought concerns the life or liberty of a person, it shall be supplied within 48 hours. Now we'll try to understand right to information, the amended version of the bill which was amended in the year 2019. Now we'll have a look at what does the Right to Information Amendment Bill 2019 propose. So the bill changes the terms and conditions of service of the CICs, that is Central Information Commissioners and Information Commissioners, at the center and the state. So bill states that central government will notify the term of office for the CIC and ICs. The bill states that salaries, allowances and other terms and conditions of service of the central and the state CICs and ICs will be determined by the central government. So we are discussing about inclusion of CJS office as a public authority, which is coming in the ambit of Right to Information Act. So we'll understand if this right is an absolute or it is not an absolute right. The answer is this is not an absolute right. It is certain to under conditions. It states clearly that right to know under RTA was not absolute. The right to know of a citizen ought to be balanced with the right to privacy of the individual judges. So the judgment is of the opinion that right to information should not be allowed to be used as a tool of surveillance. At the same time, on this aspect, Justice Khanna is of the opinion that personal information of judges should only be divulged under RTI if such disclosures serve the larger population interest. Let's get into our next article of discussion, that is regarding disqualification of MLAs. The article says Supreme Court upholds disqualification of 17 Karnataka MLAs by Speaker. Court adds that their ouster is no bar to contesting elections afresh. Under this specific topic, we'll try to understand why this is in news, what is about the 10th schedule, Representation of People Act or RPA, Act of Defection, Right to Resign, and what's the way forward. First, we'll try to analyze why this is in news. This is in news because of a Supreme Court verdict. Supreme Court on Wednesday upheld the disqualification of 17 dissident Congress and Janata Dal secular legislatures by then Speaker Karnataka Assembly Speaker K.R. Ramesh Kumar under the 10th schedule, that is anti-defection law. But the important point is that it held that is, the Supreme Court said that their ouster was no bar to contesting re-polls. That means they are eligible for contesting elections again. The justice opined that neither under the Constitution nor under the statutory scheme it is contemplated that disqualification under the 10th schedule would operate as a bar for contesting re-elections. Next, we'll try to understand the 10th schedule, which is also called anti-defection law. So, anti-defection law. 10th schedule means anti-defection law. So, the 10th schedule was inserted in the Constitution in the year 1985 by the 52nd Constitution Amendment Act. It lays down the process by which legislatures may be disqualified on grounds of defection by the presiding officer of a legislature based on a petition by any other member of the House. The important point to be noted in this 10th schedule is that the decision on question as to disqualification on ground of defection is referred to chairman or the speaker of such house, and his decision is final. That means it is not under the purview of judicial review. The laws apply to both parliament and state assemblies. Our part of discussion is regarding disqualification of 17 MLAs by Karnataka Speaker Mr. Ramesh Kumar. Okay, so when we are considering the power of speaker, this is important to us now, okay? The power of speaker under the anti-defection law. Under the anti-defection law, the Speaker had power to decide whether or not the legislature was disqualified under the above law. His decision is final and supreme decision. That means there is no appeal above that. Now, let's have a quick reference towards the anti-defection law. As we have just discussed, this is a part of 10th schedule. 52nd constitutional amendment, which was inserted in 1985 in the 10th schedule or anti-defection law. Grounds for disqualification are mentioned in the Article 102 and 191 for MPs and MLAs. Okay, presiding officer decides on the question of disqualification. That means his decision is final. We have just discussed that it is final and supreme. So, in this perspective, defection is seen during 3 circumstances. First is elected member, second one independent member, third one is nominated member. So first one we'll see with regards to elected member. So if a member of a house belonging to a political party voluntarily gives up the membership of his political party or votes or does not vote in the legislature contrary to the directions of his political party, which we famously call him whip. However, if the member has taken prior permission or concurred by the party within 15 days from such voting or abstention, the member shall not be disqualified. So that is called elected member gives up and voting. If he is elected in ticket of one particular political party and voting against the whip will. Okay, that is called elected member. Second is independent member. If an independent candidate joins a political party after the election, then he comes under the purview of anti-defection law. Third is nominated member. If a nominated member joins a party 6 months after he becomes a member of the legislature, that also will lead to defection. There is also exceptions in this law. That is, 2 exceptions are there for speaker or chairman and for party could be merged into another. That is, legislatures may change their party without the risk of disqualification in certain circumstances. We'll see how it is done. This is done by the law allows a party to merge with or into another party provided that at least 2/3 of its legislatures are in favor of the merger. In such a scenario, neither the members who decide to merge nor the ones who stay with the original party will face disqualification. So 2/3 majority merger is happening, then there's an exception from disqualification. Currently, presiding officer's decision is subjected to judicial review. So we'll see how. The law initially stated that decision of presiding officer is not subject to judicial review. This condition was struck down by Supreme Court in the year 1992, thereby allowing appeals against the presiding officer's decision in the High Court and Supreme Court. However, it held that there may not be any judicial intervention until the presiding officer gives this order. Next, we'll have a quick reference towards Representation of People Act. Okay, we know that it's been amended 8 times till now from 1950 to 2013. So, Representation of People Act 1951 is an act of parliament to provide for the conduction of election of houses of parliament and to the house or houses of legislature of each state, the qualifications and disqualifications for membership of those houses, the corrupt practices and other offences at or in connection with such elections and decision of doubts and disputes arising out of or in connection with such elections are embedded in this act. The most important fact in this act is that it was introduced in Parliament by then Law Minister Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Very important. The act was enacted by the Provisional Parliament under Article 327 of Indian Constitution before the first general elections. Next, we'll try to understand about right to resign. The court, however, upheld that MLA's submission that they had right to resign. A member may choose to resign from a variety of reasons and his reasons may be good or bad, but in his sole prerogative to resign. Okay, it is his sole prerogative to resign. An elected member cannot be compelled to continue his office if he chooses to resign. Let's get into our next article of discussion, that is regarding environment, precisely mangrove forest. They save people from cyclones, but who is saving the Sundarban mangroves is the question. Environmental experts point out constant degradation of these forests. So under this particular topic, we'll try to understand why this is in news, what are mangroves, location in India. We'll locate an Indian map where all places where mangroves can be located, what are the benefits and functions of having a mangrove forest in a coastal area, and what's the current status and what is the way forward. First, we'll try to understand why this is in news. This is in news because on October 9, 2019, when the very severe cyclone Bulbul made landfall at Saga Islands. Saga Islands is there in Indian Sundarbans in West Bengal. A group of tourists found themselves stranded near the Kailash Island in the violently inclement weather. They got out from their boat and took shelter in mangrove creeks and escaped unhurt. The cyclone was so powerful that it overturned a large fishing trawler near Saga. People in that vessel were still missing. So we can summarize this incident by stating that it would be disaster if the mangroves have not been there. Now we'll understand what are mangroves or what is a mangrove forest. So in this picture you can see mangrove forest here. So these are mangrove forest. Mangroves are salt tolerant vegetation that grows in intertidal regions of rivers and estuaries. They are referred to as tidal forests. So they are called tidal forest and belong to category of tropical wetland rainforest ecosystem. Mangroves are trees and shrub species that grow at the interface between land and sea in tropical and subtropical regions of the world. Now we are having a pictorial representation of distribution of mangroves in India. In square kilometers it is given. So the highest distribution is of course in West Bengal because of the existence of Sundarbans Delta. Okay, so mangrove forests occupy around 2 lakh square kilometers across the globe in tropical regions of 30 countries. India has a total mangrove cover of 4,482 square kilometers. A mangrove ecosystem is the interface between terrestrial forest and aquatic marine ecosystem. This ecosystem includes diversified habitats like mangrove dominant forest, litter-laden forest floors, mud flats, coral reefs, and contiguous water courses such as river estuaries, bays, intertidal waters, channels, and backwaters. Sundarbans in the Gangetic Delta with an area of 2.12 lakh hectares of land. Okay, Sundarban extends to 2.12 lakh hectares. Supports 26 plant species of mangroves with a maximum height of more than 10 meters. From this map of India, we can see very clearly that almost all the coastal regions of India, that means almost all the coastal states of India, we can locate mangroves. Okay, we'll start first from the western coast, that is Gujarat, Gulf of Kutch reefs. We can locate mangroves here. In Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Odisha and West Bengal. So everywhere we can mark mangroves. This is a satellite data. And we can also mark in Andaman Nicobar Islands. Now we'll try to understand certain mangrove forest. The famous is Sundarban mangroves, Mahanadi mangroves. Okay. Sundarban, Mahanadi mangroves, Krishna Godavari mangroves, Kaveri deltaic mangroves, Goa mangroves, Ratnagiri mangroves and mangroves of Gujarat. Okay, we have also mangroves in Andaman Nicobar Island mangroves. So if you're looking at the significance of mangroves, structural complexities of mangroves vegetation create unique environments which provide ecological niches for a wide variety of organisms. Mangroves serve as breeding, feeding and nursery grounds for most of the commercial fishes and crustaceans on which thousands of people depend for their livelihood. Mangroves give protection to the coastal line and minimize disasters due to cyclone and tsunami. So we can see very clearly from this picture, coastal area almost all the states have mangrove forest. So this gives a protection kind of a barrier for cyclones and tsunami waves. This will reduce the destruction which is caused by them. Recent studies have shown that mangroves store more carbon dioxide also than most of the other forests. So this also helps in reducing the greenhouse gas emission and the global warming. Mangroves are intermediate vegetation between land and sea that grow in oxygen deficient waterlogged soils which have hydrogen sulfide. So where hydrogen sulfide soil is there, it is grown there. They perform important ecological functions like nutrient cycling, hydrological regime, coastal protection, fish fauna, production, etc. Mangroves act as a shock absorbers and they reduce high tides and waves and help prevent soil erosion. So, apart from acting as a barrier, they also help in preventing soil erosion. But unfortunately, there is a lot of threat against this kind of forest, normally because of urbanization, industrialization, and discharge of domestic sewage, industrial effluents, and pesticides. Salt pans and aquaculture also pose major threat to mangroves. Finally, we'll see what is the way ahead of this problem. So far, none of the mangrove species have been included in the red list of IUCN. So it is a suggestion that it can be included in that. A scientific study reported that 100% of mangrove species, 92% of mangrove associates of fishes are under threat. So, periodical monitoring of mangrove forests is very much necessary to assess the status. As this what happened in West Bengal. Because of the existence of mangroves towards the coastal areas of Sagar Islands, people have been saved from this erosion and other damages and disasters. So, well, we can understand the importance of mangroves, which play a very important role in the coastal areas of India. Let's get into our next article of discussion, that is regarding Jammu and Kashmir. Narrowing options in Jammu and Kashmir, India needs to win the battle of minds within the country before trying to justify itself in the eyes of the world. Let's have a background check of this issue. August 5th of 2019, Centre have declared that they are abrogating Article 37, which is applicable and given special status to state of Jammu and Kashmir. And from 31st of October 2019 onwards, Jammu and Kashmir will not be a state henceforth and will be divided into two union territories, a UT of Jammu and Kashmir with legislature and a UT of Ladakh that is without legislature. That means Ladakh will be controlled directly by the centre, whereas Jammu and Kashmir will be having legislative assembly with the people in it. This is in news because it is a little over 100 days now since the Parliament on August 5 approved the dilution of Article 370 of the Constitution and decided to carve out of Jammu and Kashmir the UTs of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. We have just discussed this one. Jammu and Kashmir, however, will remain as an enigma for Delhi. So we'll understand why. The continuing clampdown in most part of Kashmir and the absence of any worldwide interaction between Kashmir and the outside world has prevented any realistic assessment of the situation. Let's understand what is the reality now. What is the reality behind this issue? There is a current silence across the state now, but these deep-seated anxieties are also having anger at the turn of events that is reflected at times in sporadic instances of violence. That is, this was amply evident during the brief visit of members of European Parliament to Srinagar last month when the city shut down and a couple of incidents also took place. It is possible for the authorities to claim that instances of violence are currently fewer than prior to August 5, yes, but it is a moot point whether this is any index of the true situation that exists in Kashmir today. So, irrespective of all claims and counterclaims, reality is that India's proud heritage of being one of the leading democracies in the world has been taken a beating. So, further, any procrastination would make it more difficult to pull out or pull back from the abscess of their own making. So, however laudable the objective might have been seemed in the first instance, it's better to face the reality and come out of the problem. Now we'll try to understand one of the major part of the news, that is some highs and many lows in the perspective. Notwithstanding a massive public relations exercise, it is obvious by now that results have been not what Prime Minister and the Indian government would have hoped for. There was no doubt some highs such as voiding of direct criticism of India's action in Kashmir by a majority of democratic governments in the West and by quite a few other allies, including some possessing doubtful human rights antecedents such as Saudi Arabia. But there were also equally many lows with prominent leaders such as German Chancellor Angela Merkel expressing their concern that situation of the people in Kashmir is not good and not sustainable, and the UN Human Rights Commission affirming that it is extremely concerned that people in Jammu and Kashmir to be deprived of a wide range of human rights and urging the Indian government to unlock the situation and fully restore the rights that are currently being denied. But India's record is that it has an image as a democracy that is currently on trial as much within the country as in the court of world opinion. Next, we'll also look at one of the important points, that is information flow and identity. Basically, government did not come out with a straightforward explanation or answer to the public of what it had sought and achieved by its action. That means abrogation of Article 370 and dividing into two UTs. Government have not explained to the public that what it is actually seeking and what it is achieved in this last 3 months. So precisely speaking, the government should do to put out for the information of the people of Jammu and Kashmir and to other citizens of India as also the world at large, because everybody is keen on what is happening in Kashmir, what plans it has for this troubled region in the period ahead. But at the same time, government or the authorities will need to be prepared for some degree of violence once the measures put in place are relaxed, because situation would be far better. However, this has to be accused of resorting to an authoritarian approach that further prolongation of the curfew and current harsh measures would entail. So it is again important to remember that while special measures such as Article 370 and Article 35A can be removed from the statute books, there is another, that is bigger issue at stake, that is Kashmiri identity, which cannot be erased. So we can summarize this discussion by saying that this is a time for healing for Kashmir, not for more confrontations. In Kashmir, what is needed today is a reassurance of democratic tradition rather than what cynics would refer as a bubble and a promise of vibrant economic opportunities while they worry about their freedom. At the very first step, normalcy needs to be restored by removing most of the impediments that exist at present and with the release of political leaders and many of their followers possible. That's all for today. Hope this helps. Thank you.